The Oil Creek 5 and 13 mile stack trail races. These races take place in the Drake Well Museum and Park in Titusville, PA. They consist of a 5-mile race and a 13-mile race, each taking place on the Girard Hiking Trail. The challenge? The 5-mile race starts at 7 a.m. The 13-mile race starts at 8:30 a.m. Last year, I took first place in the 5-mile, but then ultimately took second place in the stacked race. So this year, we're back for revenge.
You look fast, son.
It's just a race to where it's single file, right?
Pretty much. I'm just gonna everybody. Not gonna lie, man.
Getting up there and laying down.
That bridge, I am barrel rolling in front of everybody.
About 30 seconds or less.
We divide this into age groups. Some that racing a 17-year-old cross country star.
So as you heard the attempt of an air horn going off, the race has now begun as we make our way across the Jersey Bridge heading towards the Girard Hiking Trail. The first third of a mile or so of this race is on asphalt before eventually getting to a single track portion of the trail.
Going left! Going left!
After some slight confusion there at the start of the race with the air horn, and then one of the competitors also about to take a wrong turn before turning back onto the bike path, you can see that we actually found ourselves in first place just before we got to the bike path. Fast forwarding it ahead here a little bit before we get to the actual single track portion of the race, you can see that we're still holding the lead. I knew I wanted to get out strong here because it's very difficult to pass on any section of the trail. And once we cross the bridge here, this is whenever we got the first big climb of the 5-mile race. There's 2 big climbs on the portion of this race. The first one here, right about a third of a mile in, just as you get onto the trail. The second one comes after the cable bridge, around 2.5 miles. At this point in the race, I know it's just myself and one other person behind me here. Whenever I was doing some digging into some of the other people entered for this race, I recognized his name as the person who actually has the 13-mile course record, so I knew that he was going to be a strong competitor. As we cross over the bridge here, we actually had the family who was running the aid station on the other side of it, getting some photos on the bridge as we were coming up, so they had to make a little bit of a dash off the bridge, but luckily no problems with this. And while we're on the topic, again, huge thank you to all the volunteers and the aid station workers. And as we get to the other side of the bridge, we start the second climb of the 5-mile course. Ultimately, Matt was able to make a move on the climb here and pull away by about 2 minutes by the time we descended and got down to the finish. But knowing that the stacked trail race portion of the event comes down to time, I wanted to make sure I could get every second I could, so I made a strong effort into the finish.
Need anything?
I think I'm good.
So looking at the final results here, my time was 40:26, so just over 2 minutes behind Matt by the end of this, and I had almost a minute on third place there with Prince, and with finishing at about the 40-minute mark, that means I had about 50 minutes before the start of the 13-miler. And as we start the 13-miler here, you can see we have Matt on my right here, who won the 5-mile, and Prince, who was third place in the 5-mile. So all of the characters to keep an eye on for this second race are all right here with me. And we actually also had another gentleman named Hunter who didn't race the 5-mile, so he was fresh coming into the 13-mile, that would definitely be a contender by the end of this. And as we make our way out of the Drake Well Museum and Park, we follow across the same Jersey Bridge and up the bike trail to eventually get to the single track portion of the Girard Hiking Trail, much like the 5-mile. And For much of the first 4 miles of this race, Matt had put a pretty good gap on the pack of the three of us, that being Prince, Hunter, and myself. And it was actually at this point that Prince decided that he wanted to make a little bit of a move around me, leaving just Hunter and myself kind of running together there. Then, actually, we came up on a water station where I topped off my bottle, and Hunter was able to go around me at that point as well. So I'm sitting in fourth, and I knew that this was a long race though, so I wanted to make sure that I had some energy to push the climbs that are in the second half of this race, because the first half is definitely the easier part as we progress into it. So after Hunter kind of moved away from me to try and make a run up to Prince, I found myself alone for much of the portion around 5 miles all the way up to 12 miles actually, before I started coming up on Matt, which I didn't quite expect. So I felt as though I was moving pretty strong throughout the second half of the race, only walking on a couple portions of really steep inclines here, like the cemetery climb that comes out of the main aid station. I thought that I had closed really well in the second half of this race though, so whenever I caught Matt, I wasn't really sure what to expect for the stacked results, so I made a strong push down the last descent and onto the roadway and into the finish line.
Bleeding nipples. Oh, you get sick. Has that happened to you before?
Nope, I didn't even know that happened.
Good job. That's a badge of honor.
And here you can see the 13-mile race results, as Prince actually ended up taking the win in this, with Hunter second and myself finishing in third. And give you guys a little clip here of the finish between Prince and Hunter. They were only separated by about half a second, which is crazy whenever you're talking about a half marathon essentially. And when we add together the 5-mile and the 13-mile times, that actually put Prince in first place, Matt in second, and myself in third. And actually, whenever we looked back at previous results, Prince's time actually broke the stacked record. So that meant that he got to break a legit vinyl record that had the previous record on it, as well as a little bonus $50 for breaking that record. So congrats to Prince. All in all, it was a great day to be out there running the trails with some great people, and I'm excited to see some of these guys in races moving on into the summer months and see what we can do. But for myself, I plan to kind of transition more into the summer season for road racing, so moving away from the trails for the next few months and seeing whether we can't get some speed back underneath our legs here, because we're going to need it for this summer quad series. Look forward to that, and we'll see you next time.